What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of Punting for the People. For those of you who are new, my name is Jacob, I'm an Australian, and up until a couple of days ago I was living in Germany. The reason I say up until a couple of days ago, that is because we had a little bit of a scenery change in the YouTube setup. We are actually currently isolating in Sydney, Australia. If you watched my previous video, I talked about the fact that we were actually moving to Australia, myself and my partner Marianne. She is German, but she has got her permanent Australian residence visa. So we're actually here in Sydney, we're isolating in the hotel because we've arrived a couple of days ago, and we wanted to bring you along on the giant journey or endeavor that is involved in getting us into Australia and traveling throughout the pandemic, and especially traveling from Germany to Australia or from anywhere to Australia, because it is quite difficult at the moment to get into my lovely home country. If you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. If you aren't new and you're not subscribed already, also please consider hitting that button, and also leave a like on the video. It does help the algorithm, helps my channel get discovered, helps this video get discovered, and just helps me be more successful on this awesome platform, sharing my life and my stories. So the plan was not always to be in Australia this early. We actually wanted to arrive on the 7th of December and leave Germany on the 6th, or Nikolaus. But unfortunately we had to change our plans due to a couple of things going on with the border and with the variant, and we actually decided to come and arrive on the 2nd or leave Germany on the 1st. And that wasn't a decision that we did previously. We actually decided the Sunday before we flew out on the Wednesday to change our flight, just because there was a risk that something may happen with the border and that we may not be able to get in. So we changed our flights on the Sunday, which kind of created a giant tidal wave of things that we had to get organized and get done before we actually flew out on the Wednesday. First and foremost, to fly out to Australia, you obviously needed a negative PCR test, so we got that done on the Monday. We also needed to do things like a travel declaration form, just letting the Australian government know in advance where we had been and what we were doing. After those two things, we obviously had to have some documentation with us. Marianne printed out her residency grant. We had our passports, everything, made sure it was all organized and ready to go. We then had to change or rebook some accommodation because we didn't have accommodation for when we arrived. It was a very hectic 2 days, on top of packing up our entire lives in Germany and putting them into suitcases and getting them on the plane and making sure that we had hit under the weight limit of allowed baggage. Once all that was done, the interesting part of this trip and this video started. It was time to check in and get this trip underway. So we got our check-in done in Berlin. We actually ended up flying Scoot Airlines. It's the budget airline, which is owned by Singapore Airlines. So we flew Scoot, and we actually flew Scoot Plus, which is their version, I guess, of business or premium economy. It is a budget airline, so it doesn't quite compare to the business class of the bigger airlines, but it gets us a wider seat. It gets us more legroom, which especially for me is very important, being that I am a taller guy. And then just a couple of other little bits and pieces in terms of more baggage and things like that. We got everything checked in and we headed to the gate to board our plane. To say getting on board a plane at this time, we haven't flown since mid-2019, so to say it was weird getting onto a plane, taking off, feeling the seats and just the vibe that you have before you actually fly. Saying that wasn't a weird feeling, I'd be lying. It was incredibly weird. It was kind of uncomfortable. I'm not the best flyer to begin with because I struggle to sleep. I struggle to get comfortable. Was a little bit worried, a little bit anxious about the flight. Obviously the fact that it was 23 hours total travel as well. Marianne also gets motion sickness, so both of us together alone on this flight after a long period of time without travel. We were excited to get underway, but also very, very excited for it to end. The nervousness and anxiousness kind of left our bodies once we actually took off and got up to cruising altitude. We had a look around our seats. We got to experience the amount of legroom that we were about to have. We had charging ports in our seats. We were actually really impressed with Scoot as an airline and Scoot Plus, just everything as a whole. We found the flights to be completely and utterly amazing, especially for the price we paid for them in comparison to regular economy on other flights and business on other flights. This was by far the best value. So all that anxiousness and nervousness, as soon as we got over the clouds and had these amazing views above the clouds, the sky, the different colors, the different cloud formations, you just kind of are in awe of what you're actually experiencing. So we had a 13-hour flight from Berlin to Changi Airport in Singapore ahead of us, and it was the first step towards actually being able to arrive in Australia and get our new life underway. On the subject of Scoot Airlines, we did get a meal on both flights. The first flight, I got some kind of vegetable curry. I thought it was actually pretty good, especially for airline food. They gave us these cool little liquid center chocolate biscuits, which I absolutely loved. That was awesome. I actually stole Marianne's on the first flight and ate them because she didn't want them. But the first flight, although it was the longest leg, we both had our phones, Netflix, videos downloaded to watch, everything like that. Neither of us slept, but the first leg of the flight was actually really, really good. We arrived in Singapore 13 hours later. We were both incredibly excited because that was the hardest part. The longest leg of the trip was over with, and we were more than halfway there. Now, I have flown through Changi Airport before. Marianne had not. It's a beautiful airport. Everything was kind of closed just due to the situation with the pandemic. We managed to get some food from 7-Eleven because we were both a little hungry and a little thirsty. So after just a little bit of time, kind of relaxing, getting some food in our stomachs and just waiting for the gate to open, we went through security. We got to get a look at our second plane. It was actually raining fairly heavily in Singapore, so we were kind of worried about turbulence taking off and getting up into the sky, but that wasn't a problem. We boarded the plane, 7.5 hours to Sydney. Last leg, we were incredibly excited. Funnily enough, the second flight was probably more difficult for us than the first one. It was only about half the amount of time, or the duration of the flight was only about half, but the last kind of 1.5 to 2 hours was absolute torture. We'd finished all of our shows. We kind of messed up thinking we only had an hour left when we actually had 2, so that kind of made the time drag by very slowly. But we arrived in Sydney Airport at around 8:30 at night. Funnily enough, we thought we were going to have a massive amount of detail and a massive amount of stuff to do when we arrived, with customs and border security and Marianne with her visa and all this kind of stuff. We've been watching Achtung Zoll on German TV the last couple of weeks with the Australian border security. So there's all these nightmare cases. We were kind of expecting to go through this nightmare ourselves, but we actually cleared customs and passport control in like 20 minutes. It was really easy. It was a breeze. Everything was really good. By the time we got through there, our bags were already out, ready to be collected. We quickly grabbed Marianne a SIM card so she would have a phone in Australia, and we jumped in a taxi and made our way out to our hotel, to the apartment. So although actually getting out of the airport and getting into Australia was quite straightforward and quite easy, the next parts are the more, I guess, stricter parts, or the more important parts that you have to follow. We are obviously in this apartment, we are isolating because we have arrived from overseas. The rules in New South Wales state that we have to isolate for 72 hours. We also have to get another PCR test within 24 hours on arrival. And then on day 6, we also have to get another PCR test. So for us, we arrived. My mum was kind enough to organize some groceries to be brought into the room for us, so that way we had some food when we got here and for the last couple of days while we've been isolating. So that was absolutely lovely. Love you, Mum. And then the day after we arrived, we slept off the plane flights, woke up with a little bit of jet lag, but we had to go out into the city to get our PCR tests. We're allowed to leave our apartment only for medical reasons and to get our PCR tests. So we masked up because we obviously have to wear masks when we go outside when we're isolating. And we went for about a 5-kilometer walk through North Sydney to the hospital to go and get our PCR tests. And it's safe to say that for first impressions, Marianne was incredibly impressed with the beauty that Sydney had to offer. Thankfully, our PCR test, the results came back later that night. We were both negative, thankfully, so we don't have to shift into any kind of hotel quarantine or anything like that. So we're currently, this is actually, while I'm filming this, our last day in isolation, and we just want to experience Australia again. I haven't been here in nearly 3 years. So much can change in 3 years. So we're really excited to get out of isolation tomorrow and start on our journey here in Australia. Traveling halfway across the world during all this stuff, no problem for us at all. Incredibly lucky, or we think we're incredibly lucky that we actually managed to do it and get over here without any kind of big major speed bumps. So really, really happy, really excited, really thankful that we can both be here and, you know, start a new chapter or the next chapter. But guys, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed our little travel kind of montage of getting from Berlin over here to Sydney. And I hope you do stick around for future videos because we're gonna get outside, we're gonna get on the run and move around Sydney and show you guys some of the amazing things that there are. There's so much to see and do in Sydney and in other places in the country, and we just can't wait to bring you along and show you what happens in our lives here in Australia. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do consider subscribing to the channel. And obviously, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, leave your comments below. And as always, my name is Jacob. This is Punting for the People, and I'll see you guys in the next video.